We're only 6 months in, but so far, Trump's second term is a parade of chaos that could be on its way to cementing its place as the worst in U.S. history. From the big beautiful bill that showers billionaires with tax breaks while gutting aid for millions, to tariffs that hammer American consumers, to misguided deportations that tear families apart, no misstep is left untaken. There's the Epstein file cover-up, the cabinet's endless gaffes, and Trump's seemingly weekly unhinged comments. It's really hard to keep up. In this episode, we're going to attempt to recap 178 days or so of a presidency drowning in its own dysfunction. Hello and welcome to another installment of Back Porch Files, a weekly supplemental drop from your neighbor on the left, the podcast about liberal politics, human decency, and life on the blue side of America's ideological divide. My name is Don Spielis, your memorious host, and today we're diving headfirst into the chaotic mess of the second Trump administration. It's been a few months, and the missteps, lies, and outright disasters are piling up faster than you can say fake news. From tariffs hitting American wallets to deportations tearing families apart, from the circus that is the cabinet to the so-called big beautiful bill that's only beautiful for billionaires, this administration is a masterclass in dysfunction. All this before we even get to the Epstein file fiasco. After years of GOP grandstanding, they've gone silent when it's time to open the books. We're going to recap some of the lowlights and make the case that this might just be the worst administration in U.S. history. So let's kick things off with the crown jewel of Trump's second term thus far, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, signed into law on July 4th, 2025, with all the fanfare of a red, white, and blue circus. Sounds patriotic, right? Not so much. This 887-page monstrosity is less America first and more billionaires first. It extends massive tax cuts for the wealthy, hikes the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, and throws $150 billion for a border wall and deportations. Meanwhile, it cuts Medicaid and nutrition programs, stripping health coverage from millions of low-income Americans. The New York Times called it a horror for working families, and they're not alone. The Congressional Budget Office estimates it'll add $3.3 trillion to the national debt by 2034. This time, it's really over. The Republican Party can no longer call themselves deficit hawks. This bill is a blank check for the rich, paid for by slashing programs that keep vulnerable Americans afloat. And that Social Security Administration email claiming the bill eliminated taxes on benefits, pure misinformation, according to the experts. Trump's out there claiming it doesn't touch Social Security taxes, but it doesn't eliminate them, despite what he's posting on Truth Social. It's like he's betting nobody will read the fine print. Most Republicans in Congress barely had time to read the whole thing before voting. House leadership rammed it through in 24 hours, leaving even GOP holdouts fuming. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the ear-splitting Georgia rep, even said she voted for stuff she never read. This isn't governance. It's a steamroller. A poll from the New Republic shows only 2/3 of Republicans support it, which is really odd when you consider that all but 2 of them voted for it. And a majority of average Americans despise it. If that's Trump's idea of a win, I'd hate to see a loss. Historically, this bill's unpopularity rivals the most controversial acts of the Gilded Age when robber barons ran the show. It's greed wrapped in a flag. But we've covered all the dirty details on that before. Let's move on to the next disaster. Trump's economic wrecking ball, and by that, of course, I mean Trump's tariff policy. The policy was supposed to make America great again, but it's making American consumers poorer. From copper to pharmaceuticals, he slapped tariffs as high as 200% on certain imports, promising they'd force trade deals. Spoiler alert, they haven't. His July 8th, 2025 deadline for dozens of trade deals, only one got signed. And his deal with China is just a framework, not a complete deal. He even halted talks with Canada over their digital services tax. The guy's playing chess with a sledgehammer. These tariffs are a self-inflicted wound, raising prices for us, the consumers. Higher mortgage rates, electricity bills, not to mention the cost for Trump's new favorite word, groceries. The National Federation of Independent Business reported small business optimism tanking in June 2025 due to trade tensions. Trump keeps moving the goalpost, delaying tariffs when the backlash gets too loud, like on April 9th and May 12th, when he backed off after markets wobbled. Now he set an August 1st deadline for new rates, no extensions. Japan's prime minister called the 25% tariff on their imports extremely regrettable, which I guess is diplomat speak for you're screwing us. All of this based on a concept that a college freshman learns in Econ 1. Who's paying? American families. The New York Times reported higher prices across the board, from healthcare to energy, all tied to the tariffs. Wall Street shrugs because Trump caves when the heat's really on, so it's hard to get too worked up, assuming you've got a nice portfolio for a cushion, of course. It's chaos by design. Compare this to the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, which deepened the Great Depression. Trump's approach isn't reckless. It's a proven recipe for economic pain, ignoring a century of evidence. He's tanking the economy while claiming victory. But, there's something even uglier than this. Next, we have deportations, cruelty as policy. Trump promised the largest mass deportation in U.S. history, and he's delivering, kind of. ICE raids are hitting cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago, backed by National Guard and even Marines. He's carving out exceptions for farm and hotel workers after pushback from donors and folks like Joe Rogan. Unless you talk to his director of immigration services, who says there will be no exceptions. Farmers can vouch for undocumented workers, according to Trump's idea, and they're safe. Everyone else, deported, sometimes to third countries they've never set foot in, like Venezuelans sent to El Salvador's notorious prison. The Supreme Court had to block some of these moves under the Alien Enemies Act. The administration's spokesperson, Abigail Jackson, said, "There's no amnesty for violent, criminal, illegal aliens. But a large portion of deportees aren't criminals. They're workers, parents, community members." All the while, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is doing photo ops dressed as Militia Barbie and testifying before Congress that habeas corpus is a power of the president. In L.A., when protests broke out over deportations, using military forces violated the Posse Comitatus Act, which forbids the use of military for civilian law enforcement, and costing taxpayers $134 million in L.A. alone. But the human cost of all this is the real horror. Families torn apart, communities terrorized. A federal judge called out the Justice Department for mishandling cases like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, where a man was wrongly deported and smeared with human smuggling charges. This isn't law and order, it's lawlessness. Public approval's tanking. Only 40% support Trump's deportation policies, and that number's from conservative magazine The New Republic. Even his base is fracturing, with MAGA influencers crying betrayal over the worker exemptions. This level of disruption recalls the worst of past policies, like Japanese internment during World War II. It's not just ineffective, it makes us look at best like morons to the world economy, and at worst, a fallen power that can't be counted on anymore. And that was all before Alligator Alcatraz was built, a concentration camp in Florida meant for housing detainees who have been deported. But enough about money. Let's go to morality, or a lack thereof. Let's talk about the Epstein debacle. For years, the GOP has been screaming about Democrats being soft on predators, accusing them of protecting Epstein's client list, often going as far as to say it's the Democrats who are actually the predators. Now, Trump's Attorney General, Bondi, says there's nothing more to share. The Epstein case is effectively closed. The MAGA base is livid. Dan Bongino reportedly stormed out of a meeting with Trump's chief of staff over a DOJ FBI memo dismissing the client list claims. Even Elon Musk, Mr. America Party, called for transparency, but Trump's brushing it off, calling it a hoax now, and saying it was started by the Democrats, forgetting, apparently, the years of ranting and raving that the Republicans did on that very subject. As for Pam Bondi, who claimed on live TV that the list was on her desk, she now agrees that it never existed. And this after a letter surfaced dated February 27th, where she told Kash Patel, FBI director, that she's gotten the list from him, but wants the rest of the documents. It's a stunning reversal. The GOP built a narrative around Epstein as a symbol of elite corruption, yet their silence is now deafening. Compare this to the Watergate cover-up. When trust in government erodes, it's because leaders dodge accountability. The hypocrisy burns. Trump's own words, nobody cares about Epstein. Really? Tell that to the victims and the conservatives at the Tampa conference demanding Bondi's head. This isn't just a misstep, it's a betrayal of their own rhetoric. It's like they only cared when it was a political club to swing, but we've seen that before. Now they're in power, it's darkness and crickets. So now Trump would like us to believe that the Epstein files was a hoax created by Obama and Hillary and Biden in order to smear him, Donald Trump, but yet they didn't use it before he was elected, and then they gave it to him to use now that he's elected? Am I the only one who thinks that that's crazy, even for Donald Trump? But in all fairness, President Trump is not the only loon in the White House. Let's talk about his cabinet. This administration's cabinet is a masterclass in incompetence. We have Health Secretary RFK Jr., whose first report from as HHS Secretary cited imaginary sources, not just unreliable sources or unverifiable sources, imaginary sources. He continues to spout unproven theories, pushing misinformation with twisted statistics. He even took his grandkids swimming in Rock Creek in Washington, D.C., a waterway known to be polluted with human waste. Then there's Pete Hegseth. He's been caught in not one, but two security breaches involving the Signal app, one where he actually sent classified information to a reporter. That would have ended anyone else's career, but not Party Pete. We have Linda McMahon, Education Secretary, who thought AI was called A1, but likes school vouchers, thinks they're neat. We have Frank Bisignano, who, when named as head of the Social Security Administration, admitted he had to Google it to see what the job entailed. Kash Patel, who, despite his intense and confident stare, is reportedly giving staff lie detector tests to see if they like him. And don't forget Marco Rubio, one of the many on record as having said he hated Trump, who now seems to sink into every chair he sits in like the kid in class who didn't do the homework and hopes he won't get called on. And of course, there's our president, Donald Trump himself, claiming he obliterated Iran's nuclear sites, which was debunked by both CNN and the New York Times, and accusing James Comey of plotting his assassination via a seashell Instagram post. He brings up Obama, Hillary, and Biden just about every week, but then chastises reporters who insist that Jeffrey Epstein is still a story. The man's unhinged. He goes on a 90-minute plus rant in cabinet meetings, venting about Epstein and Putin and the media. This, of course, after the roundtable where all the cabinet gets to spend a few minutes apiece spewing ass-kissing platitudes towards Trump that sound like a script for a Saturday Night Live cold open. All of this, of course, shows a president who's more focused on settling scores and empty compliments than governing. Compare this to Nixon's paranoia or Harding's teapot dome. It's that level of dysfunction on steroids. And the lies. Trump's disapproval rating set a personal record. 55% don't think he's cutting the mustard, according to a brand new poll from The Economist and YouGov. His base is in the midst of a hard fracture over the Epstein situation, and he gave a speech on the 16th where he made veiled threats towards Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, one of two Republicans who did not vote for the big bullshit bill. But does this faze our commander-in-chief? Certainly not. He doubles down, claiming he's more popular than ever. It's a circus, except all the monkeys appear to have had closed head injuries, and the ringmaster is orange and keeps talking over the clowns. This administration's not just failing, it's failing spectacularly, dragging the country down with it. So I've spent enough time, not enough to cover all the disasters, but enough for an episode of Back Porch Files. There's just simply too much. Every day, every week. When I started this podcast, I wondered how I deal with it if there was nothing new to talk about in a given week. Ooh, talk about a baseless fear. So, given all I've listed and all I've skipped, is this the worst administration in U.S. history? Well, let's just say it's in the running. The combination of economic recklessness, moral failures, and sheer incompetence is unmatched in modern times. Only Harding's corruption or Buchanan's inaction even come close. But Trump's chaos is uniquely destructive. And we're only 6 months in. Imagine what's next. As always, I want to thank everyone who downloaded this episode for listening. I want to hear from you. Tell me what the worst thing you think the Trump administration has done so far. Tell me you think I'm full of baloney. Tell me what you think of the podcast as a whole. Reach out. All the social media links are listed on our Linktree page, and that link is in the episode description. Or you can email at neighboroutleftpodcast@gmail.com. I would love, love, love to hear from you. Stay vigilant, stay engaged, keep calling out the nonsense, and as always, have the week you voted for.